Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I'm getting some feedback on my monitor here. That is, anyway, good morning to this morning's presentation. We're delighted to have Ash Grove here to speak to us about the deep retrofit grants for vacant derelict properties. I seem to have two microphones on, but we're going to give it another minute anyway, and I'll try and sort that out. And we'll start off in a minute's time. People are coming in. Good morning, everyone. I still seem to have that feedback and with two screens open. Okay, I think I found the problem there. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me all right? Give a nod there, Barbara. Yeah, I had two screens open. Great. Good morning, everyone, and you're all very welcome to this morning's presentation from BER Assessors Association, our CPD event. And we're delighted to welcome this morning Ash Grove Renewables to present on the topic of deep retrofit grants and the derelict properties. And apologies there, I closed some screens. Anyway, so look at the guys had kind of said to me that they didn't want a big introduction that they'd sent on to me anyway. So I'm after turning it off now as I got rid of that screen. So we've solved that problem, guys. So I see the numbers still coming in there pretty heavily. So just before we get started with the presentation, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping from the association side. So obviously we've made the presentation open to all BR assessors this morning. So of course we're encouraging people to join the BR Assessors Association. You know, we're all work better and stronger together if we can have an association that's strong with as many members as possible. All the stakeholders in the industry will pay more attention to us if the stronger the group is. So we'd encourage everybody to join through our fantastic new website, which is up and running. All the CPD events from the past are all there. You can log in, obviously, for your CPD points, record them as informal if you watch them back in your own time. So we'd encourage everybody to check out that website and use it as a resource tool as well. Quick access to the most up-to-date versions of the manuals in NEEP and DEEP. So we strongly encourage that people would do that. Other news, so on the 20th of March this month, we will have our annual general meeting. So as is required every year, we'll be seeking new members to the committee and electing new officers to the roles of chair, secretary and treasurer. So that's going to be happening on the 20th of this month at 6 o'clock in the evening. So we'll send out links and more promotional stuff around that. So of course, really encourage people to join the committee. It's not a lot of work. You sit in on about 10 or so meetings per year. help out when you can. It's not a huge amount of work, especially we can spread the resources around the most people possible. That's the best way to do it. So encourage people to email us in at admin or chair at BER Assessors Association, and get involved in the committee, or if you want to get involved in other parts of the association, get onto us, and we'll get that going. Last piece of housekeeping then, we're going to be at the Energy Show. We are going to be outside the Retrofit area, so we strongly encourage all our members to come and visit us, come and say hi and have a chat. Great networking event, and we'll be there for both days, just outside the retrofitting zone. Can't quite remember the name of the stand. I'll think of it before the end of the meeting and say it again. So I'm going to go over to Shane and the guys in Ashgrove straight away there now and let them kick off their presentation. So you got your wish, Shane. I lost that lovely blurb that somebody wrote for you. So I let you start off by telling us something about yourselves and Ashgrove, and away you go.
Super. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, for the people who are not in on the joke there, somebody in my office sent through an introduction for myself and John, but it was like something that Donald Trump would write about himself, how fantastic he was. So I only read it last night, and I started sweating as I read it. So we decided to shoot it. Anyway, my name is Shane Murphy. I'm Managing Director at Ashgrove. My background is renewable energy. Back to 2001, we started Ashgrove. I'm joined by my colleague today, John Allen, my beautiful assistant. Johnny is an architect by profession. Today, what he deals with for us, within the company, he looks, I suppose, the detail of all the grants. There seems to be an issue with sound for some people there, I guess, but for others, it's fine. I don't understand. Anyway, so John looks after the grant detail, dealing with SAI, any communication, and getting through that. He also keeps an eye on some of the team here in terms of grant applications, or maybe at an earlier stage when we're dealing with homeowner or what we call VIP queries. So that's John's job. My job is to look after, from a day-to-day point of view, to look after the overall business, but I suppose most of my focus goes on training events like this, and so on. So we'll launch on. You can see my presentation. You can see my screen, Stephen. You might give me a thumbs up. Okay. So what we're going to cover, I would say anybody who has questions, put them in as soon as you can, because what we don't want is a huge glut of them as we go. But we're going to talk about the Croí Cónaithe. We're going to talk about the application process. We're not going to go into it in deadly detail. The main thing is, I suppose, get a feel for it, get a feel how it dovetails together with the SAI grants. We're seeing a lot of people. I met another guy on Sunday who's getting a vacant house grant. He wasn't aware of the SAI grants at all. He was doing 2 houses, and anyway, long story short, there's people we're seeing left, right, and centre leaving money after them, and our job is to educate them as well as we can, and so on. So we talk about how to claim the grants. The additional SAI grants are up to maximum of roughly 36,000 on top of the vacant and derelict 70. We talk about the process and the timeline from the council point of view, the local authority. We look at some case studies. We look at the admin and the process if you were dealing with Ashgrove. I'm not going to go into that too much because it's not about Ashgrove. We'll talk about some of the webinars that are available there for the homeowner. Most of them, there's probably 1/3 of them that are available for professionals like yourselves. And lastly, we take the Q&A we'll take them in spots, but the main thing is get them in as we go, if you could. So a tiny bit about Ashgrove, won't bore you. We're in business since 2001, and we're home energy specialists. About 1/3 of our business today is kind of new build. 70% of our work today is grant related, whether it's homes or commercial, industrial. We're a registered one-stop shop. And we're a registered one-stop shop. That means, I suppose, when we face a homeowner, that we're, I suppose, an approved advisor to be able to tell them which way to go and how to go about it. The second part of that, the community energy grant, is probably more suited to the vacant and derelict home projects. We'll talk about that. There are two variants to that community energy grant now. We'll talk a little bit about it. Just to let you know that in 2016, outside of the approved housing bodies in Ireland, about 16% of the one-stop shop and CEG projects passed through Ashgrove. Now, why am I saying that? I'm not doing Donald Trump on it and saying how great we are, how fantastic we are, but really, I suppose we know how the mechanism works, and we're we're getting a lot of these through. I would say a substantial portion of those are vacant and derelict, as well as CEGs or one-stop shops. It's a very simple process, like anything, once you know how it works. So that's that. We have in our office today about 55 people. About 1/3 of those are there to help the customer early on, make their decisions, educate them, point them to webinars, and so on, so they can learn about heat pumps, or they can learn about solar or insulation. We do webinars on everything. And our promise, I suppose, is that if you send a customer to us, we'll deal with their queries within an hour. If we are dealing with professionals like yourselves, it might be architects, it might be builders, we're dealing with those calls as they come in. So for the last few weeks, we've been hiring fairly frantically to make sure that we're able to take every phone call from professionals. So we're considering you guys VIPs. So if you ring in here and say that we haven't dealt with you before, but that you're a BER technical assessor, we'll put you on our system as such, and we will deal with those calls on the spot. We also have an app you saw out there to start, whatgrant.ie. That's there really. It was there for the homeowner, but it was there to, I suppose, to simplify the process where you can share information with somebody you meet on the street or whatever it is. You just say, just download this app, and you have short little videos. Why would I use a one-stop shop? Why would I use a CEG grant? Why would I use a vacant and derelict? What are the criteria? Very short. It's not about Ashgrove. There's no sales in it. It's matter of fact, black and white, facts and figures. You guys will be looking for CPD points, I'm guessing. Make sure to contact us afterwards. Maybe Stephen, you guys might, whatever way, you contact us individually if you want. So that's it, just to give you an idea. So in terms of inspections last year, we had Ashgrove here is E. The last one, we have 100% first time pass rate. Okay. Now again, that's not a Donald Trump statement. The point is there, we know how these schemes work. We're a long time in the industry, since 2001. We're dealing with SEI since 2006. And, we have good, robust practices and quality assurance people in place. So we have 100% pass rate. We're the only ones in the country who have. So a tiny bit, I'm going to skip down. We do a lot of vacant derelict, new buildings, home energy upgrades, single and multi-unit. We're seeing the multi-unit starting to creep in here, where somebody had a pub and they're converting it into 6 apartments. They're entitled to 6 grants to do that up. So 6, probably, well, it's CEGs we're putting them through, but they're entitled to 6 grants for that, right? It's a case-by-case basis. There's no, I suppose, advertised methodology from SEI, but we apply for them case by case, and we're seeing more and more of them creeping in. We do domestic and commercial agri-solar. So products, heat pumps, geothermal making its way back, as you've probably seen. We do a lot of, is it this Friday we have a heat pump webinar? Yeah. It's common mistakes. We're not telling people how great heat pumps are. We're telling them that probably the 10 most common mistakes we see: pipework too small, pumps too small, controls bad. Undersized radiators is not so bad, but underfloor heating with the wrong floor coverings we see as a huge problem, and it's leading to trebling of running costs, in severe cases maybe quadrupling of running costs, and we're all blaming the heat pumps. So we deal with that in I'd say it's a once a quarter, once every 2 months. We do that, and again, that's for homeowners and professionals. Solar panels, underfloor heating and cooling, making getting busy through underfloor, and so on. So all those webinars are free. So we'll launch into what we're here for. So the vacant and derelict, as you know or might know, is available through your local authority. So that's either the county council or the city council. It's to promote the bringing back of idle houses into use. It had a very slow start going back the 2 years. When we combine the two grants here, we're entitled to €106,050. My own house, by the way, I'll show it here in the presentation. It's nearly finished. I'm getting, I think, 103,000 of grants through that, which, you know, it's a great help. I'd have to say you'd need it today the way prices are gone, but it all helps, right? And so at the moment, sorry, that's actually incorrect, that statement there. Sorry,
these are the figures. These are the applications that have been approved through the vacant and derelict program since up to the 31st of December. So we'll go through more detail on the next slide, maybe just to show you the trend. But
I read it just something else. Sorry. Yeah, correct. And that's the number that have been completed. And we'll show it quarter by quarter in 2 seconds, right? The average grant is 53k, which means obviously a portion of those are availing of the derelict as well as the vacant.
Yeah, so that's purely for the vacant and derelict grant. Just to go back, you can only claim one grant for the vacant and derelict, but the SEAI grants you can claim for the multiple apartments. So just to clarify that, the 6 grants you can get are for the SEAI grants. You can't get 6 grants for the vacant and derelict, no matter how many times you split it up into different apartments.
Yeah, apologies, Alana. Yeah, my fault. Okay, so this gives an idea. We do a lot of talks with government and stuff like that, or I suppose politicians maybe more accurately, but we see them for the last year getting a lot of stick over the uptake in the vacant and derelict, but you can see here quarter by quarter the uptake, and it's if it continues doubling, it's essentially doubling there for per quarter last year. So you can see, and we can feel that here in the office as well. So that's one thing. Here is what's happening with SEI grants paid out overall. So you can see again a rapid increase. So the industry is getting up to speed as we iron the various problems out, and the supply chain starts getting up to speed. So what we're going to cover is the vacant and derelict. That's the local authority. The community energy grants, I would say in 90% of cases, is our preferred grant route for a vacant and derelict. We'll explain why. In some small number of cases, I don't think we've seen one where the one-stop shop would work better with the vacant and derelict project. Well, certainly if it's derelict, the one-stop shop would be very difficult, but we'll go through that in a second. And the individual energy upgrade. So we hear quite often that people are gone the BEH route, Better Energy Homes route, because they found or they've heard that the one-stop shop is clunky or expensive, or they can't get answers or whatever it is. If somebody's going down the individual energy upgrades route, they're leaving. I'm shooting from the hip now. I think it's around 17,000, just under 18,000 after them, depending on what works they're carrying out. But it's essentially double the grant amount under the one-stop shop or the CEG. Yeah, okay. And so these ones are available from the SEI. We're entitled to claim both. Some people think we're playing in a grey area there, but that's not true. The government are well aware, and it is their intention that you can avail of both. So, okay. So, sorry, wrong slide. Okay. So this is actually a picture of my house before I started. So obviously vacant and derelict there, clearly a roof not in good shape, etc. So the key points, you'll be familiar with some of these, but we'll rifle down through them. The vacant home grant is up to 50,000. You obviously have to spend the 50 before you'll get it. The house must have been built before 2008, so that's, just to be clear, up to the end of 2007. You need proof that the house has been vacant for the 2 years, and the authority will accept that in a number of forms. Easiest would be an electricity bill showing zero usage or very low usage. Every now and then we'll have to put a case to them where, especially out in the country, some of you mightn't be, but where you might have something like an electric fence, or it might be an alarm system, your oil boiler might be running even though you're not in the house, but it's explainable, and some cases you'll need to sign an affidavit to state it has been vacant and whatever, but so that's it.
Just on that, there's no set rule that the kilowatt hours of the ESB bills have to be below a certain level. It's kind of left open to the each local authority for them to determine that they're satisfied that the house has been vacant for 2 years. So DSB bills is the simplest way. If that was 0, and obviously there's no question there, it's been vacant. There's a lot of scenarios where Shane is talking about where even there's a large consumption because there's a farm connected to the vacant house, and that's where you need to go down the other routes. There is other routes available. The ESB bills are not the only route. There are other routes available, and again, it's kind of done on a local authority case by case basis on what they'll accept.
Yeah, the one thing we didn't say there, by the way, if the electricity connection has been disconnected, obviously that's evidence as well. So the other thing you need to show proof of ownership or proof of active negotiation. So obviously to apply for the grant, to claim down the grant, we will have to own the house. But to actually apply for the grant, you need to show evidence that you're either in negotiations to buy it. That's a risky process now because there's a 13-month clock ticking. When you get the letter from the council saying go ahead, the clock is ticking 13 months. Now I've gotten mine extended, but still in all, you don't want to be caught in a scenario there where you agree the project and it takes a month or two longer than you thought, but you have your letter, your grant has been activated, and next year going to the bank, then you're going to a builder, and all of a sudden there's 5 or 6 or 8 months gone, as we know, and all of a sudden it's not possible. They might entertain some sort of a special extension, but you want to be careful. So, and you need proof of ownership for drawdown. That should go without saying, I suppose. In order to apply, you need to show that the property is either up to date with the local property tax or that it's exempt. In some of those cases, by the way, I saw it with my own house where I didn't have an air code because the house hadn't been lived in, and actually it was a bit of a pain in the ass. Pardon the language, to get it done. I would have expected it was relatively straightforward, but it happened that it wasn't, and it took probably 6 or 7 weeks. But if you were in I did it early enough, I suppose that it didn't matter. But if I left it late, that could have been a critical 6 or 7 weeks for me. Okay, so we just seen some of the questions there that for the vacant and derelict, it has to be either your primary residence or you can have a second one under your name, but it has to be available for long-term rent. That can't be Airbnb or something like that. It has to be on the
residential tenancy board, so the RTB. So you have to commit that you're going to register it on that before you at the first application stage, and then once you actually won't get the money until there's proof that you are registered with the RTB.
Yeah. So that's so you are allowed to have 2, but you have to live in one of them. Okay. The derelict then is a further 20,000 on top of the 50. Right. So this is considered a top-up grant. And to apply for this, we need an independent report. So this is an engineer or an architect to say, and the wording here is a little bit grey. It says structured, and this is from the vacant and derelict, I suppose,
guidance document.
Guidance document. It says structurally unsound and dangerous. Now, from what we've seen, if we see a report going in that says derelict on it, they don't do an awful lot of questioning, provided when the guy comes out to inspect it, which they will do at the start. It's not, anyway, we haven't seen big pushback on it, right? Maybe you have, but I don't think we have. In some counties or cities, we are seeing that the local authority will not accept a letter, the engineer's report. They want to see that the property is on the derelict sites register. Now, we've only heard that anecdotally so far.
Yeah, there's only one case that we heard of on doing actually one of these webinars. Somebody flagged it to us. We haven't heard it anywhere else, thankfully.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing for the derelict is you need a quotation for the works. You don't need that for the vacant and derelict, as I understand. Sorry, for the vacant rather, for the vacant at the moment. Yeah. So, so there's the 13 months. They're talking about extending that to 18 months, but they're talking about it now for a year. There seems to be some sort of a problem in getting it through legislation or whatever it is. But and the last time I spoke to the senator responsible for housing, it was less hopeful than it was a year ago. I don't know why that is, but it's just as I say, just be careful with the 13 months. The clock is ticking from the day you get that letter. If we thought somebody was building a big extension or anything like that, what we would say to them is contact your authority and ask for approval in principle. The bulk of them will work with you there. At the end of the day, they want to get these houses through. So they'll give you approval in principle, and then when you want to start the clock ticking, they'll give you the letter. Okay, the bulk of them are amenable. So, and lastly, whatever contractors you're using must be tax compliant. So we need that, obviously, well, sorry, it mightn't be obvious, but it is the case. Now, you're entitled to do some of the work yourself. Okay, so this is a question we get asked all the time. We know that through the one-stop shop, which we'll talk about, you really can't. Through the CEG, you can do some
elements.
You can, yeah, and through the vacant and derelict, you can also do as much of it as you want, but you can't claim for your time. You can only claim for materials. Okay, but if you're using contractors, they must be tax compliant. So these are the FAQs. So we've tried to take pressure off ourselves and put in what we're seeing in these webinars. So we can skip that first one. I think we've covered.
Yeah, just to go back, there was a question in there. So ESB bills is the starting point, but affidavits from previous owners, or if you've owned it for the 2 years, affidavits from yourself to say that it's been vacant normally qualifies. So yeah, they're kind of two main routes.
Yeah. Right, guys, if I could just throw one in there as well, just you've mentioned CEG a lot of time, and I'm aware that there might be a lot of people on the call that don't actually know what that is.
Yeah, fair question, Stephen. We're actually going to come to it. For the moment, we'll just consider it exactly the same grant as the one-stop shop, but the methodology is different. But yeah, good spot, Stephen. So we'll be coming to it in 2 seconds. We'll go into it in detail. But it is, for as far as we're concerned now, you can get all of the same grants as you can through the one-stop shop, but you don't have to use a one-stop shop. So you can do, say, the floor insulation yourself, Stephen, if you wanted to put it in. Your brother-in-law can do the windows. You know, ABC Solar can do the solar, Ashgrove can do the heat pump and all of it. And when you come back to us when it's all finished, provided you follow the rules, you can actually get the same grants retrospectively. So you're not tied to a one-stop shop. And, you know, like what we're seeing with some of these big projects, Stephen, is that when they're going on and you're knocking walls, maybe taking out floors, the one-stop shops appear, number one, to be, you know, they're going to take on a local builder. Of course, they're going to be managing him, and the price just starts to get a bit wonky. That's not in all cases, but for these types of projects, we tend to see the one-stop shop route doesn't work, or it doesn't work as well. The CEG, your local builder can do the work, provided he follows the agreed plan. He can get all the grants, but it is retrospective. Whereas the one-stop shop, it's the grant comes off as you go. We'll come to it in great detail, in some detail anyway, Stephen. Average time frame for approval. Want to answer that?
Yeah, so I think countrywide, the average time frame for the first approval was 15 weeks. I think the last I read. It varies obviously depending on the local authority. I think in Donegal they're very fast and very quick. I see somebody has it in there. But Cork, I'd have to say, is fairly good, I think.
Mine was about 6 weeks, and yeah, I found them extremely helpful.
Yeah.
And I had the post-works inspection there a few weeks ago, and again, they want these projects through. So they're looking to give the money out. They're not looking like we see sometimes to hold on to the money and find. They're not like the insurance companies trying to find every excuse not to give it to you. When is the payment received? This is probably again slower. We're seeing probably up to I'm going to say 3 months, maybe 4 months, but again, I would say that's case by case.
And again, that's after works are completed. So you only get that money drawn down after you complete all the works. I know again they are talking about stage payments at various, just to try and ease that funding gap. I suppose, yeah, like anything, I don't see it happening too quickly. But it is something that they're talking about trying to do. But it does happen after your inspection, after they have proof that the house is now habitable and you're back, or it's in a livable condition. Then they're happy to pay out the money, not before that.
Yeah. So, can you install? Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so you can install an oil or gas boiler since the start of the year. It's actually, they can't provide funding for fossil fuels, so they can't give a grant towards it. You can still install it if you want, but you can't claim a grant for it, either through the SAI, obviously, or through the vacant and derelict. You have to exclude that from the plumbing section of the application form if you want to install an oil or gas boiler.
Okay. Is the grant available for developers? The vacant and derelict, sorry, it can't be, no.
Yeah, the vacant and derelict is purely for individuals. So it's not developers. They don't want to be funding, I suppose, property developers in increasing their portfolio. It's really to get houses back in usable conditions, and that people who are looking to live in them can spend their money on it.
Okay. So we've covered that. The refurbishment works under the vacant and derelict. You can do whatever you want yourself. There'll be certain things maybe that you can't, just you won't have the skills for, but you can't put in a bill for your time. You can put in a bill for the materials and for any contractors you use. So that's can I sell the house? So
I'll come to that on the next slide, actually. And you there is a clawback mechanism, and it varies over time. But so that kind of you are liable to pay that money back. So the local authority purchase and renovation scheme, this is another good scheme to be aware of. It basically helps to bridge that funding gap for first-time buyers who are buying a vacant and derelict house. They can use this, and they can't get a mortgage, we'd say, for the full cost of the house and for doing the works. They can use this purchase and renovation loan, and the vacant and derelict grant actually goes back into the local authority purchase and renovation loan, so it doesn't go to the homeowner, and that pays off part of their mortgage. So it allows people to get access to funds without, where they can't get it maybe through a conventional bank. So can I get the grant for converting a vacant commercial property to a residential home? Yes, you can. Again, you have to live in it or rent out one, but you can get that. If the cost of works exceed the grant amount is maxed at 70,000, provided it's vacant and derelict. So you don't get any more money if you spend 400,000 versus if you spend 110,000. It's still 70,000. And what happens if the project takes longer than 13 months? So again, Shane has covered some of this. There was talks of extensions. They are happy to provide extensions on case-by-case basis, provided that the project is moving and progressing. What they don't want is for you to apply for it and sit on it, and then those funds are ring-fenced for you, but you've no intention of using them, and so there's potential there that they couldn't be used for somebody else. So again, all the local authorities we've seen are happy to provide extensions, again within reason, provided you only need an extra few months. If you're saying I need an extra 2 years, they'll probably start asking questions, I'd imagine. Yeah,
I got a 3-month extension, which I whistled on past, but I showed them photos. We told them, look, we had problems with foundations, we had problems with contractors, we had problems with lots of things. 90% of them were legitimate problems, and others I probably manufactured myself. But you know, the house is now essentially complete, and you know, they're happy enough, right? You know, it's within the spirit of the thing, as we say. So the clawback mechanism is so if you sell in the first 5 years, and people get very emotional about this and they nearly refuse to take the grant, that to me never makes sense. If they're considering maybe selling the house, they have to give back 100% of the 50 or 70k. if they sell it in the first 5 years. But the reality is, sure, the property will be, you know, if you have to give back 50k, the property will be better off by the 50k or more.
Yeah.
And so in the first 5 years, it's 100% clawback. 5 to 10 years is 75% clawback, and over 10 years, there's no clawback. Okay. Anything to add to it, John?
No.
Yeah, sorry, the clawback remains, by the way, regardless. So if the property was 300 grand valued at 300k today, and in 5 years' time it was valued at 150k, and you sell it, they still want their
70,000
back.
Yeah, so that the clawback is equal to the same amount of grant that you've drawn down.
Yeah.
So if it's 53,500 or whatever it is, that's the amount you have to pay back.
Yeah. Okay. So we won't spend much time in the application form, right? I have all the pages of it here, but really, look, most of it is fill in your name and stuff like that. It asks you whether you're going living in it or you're going renting it. It asks you about is it vacant or just vacant only or vacant and derelict. It asks you if you're getting the additional SEI grants. So we would have a lot of people who'd call us and they're saying, I'm going filling out these forms, and we just steer them through it. The SEI is very prescriptive. You put in that we're getting a heat pump, we're getting wall insulation, windows and doors and whatever. Just make sure that they don't appear then on this form. Okay.
Well, they can appear on this form. This is the first stage form, and we go through it in a few more slides in this one actually. Yeah.
Okay. But yeah. So nothing in that we want to say. So here is approximate costs. You would want to include all works, so you'd be including the heat pump and stuff in it. You're just not going claiming the grants for it through the vacant and derelict. When they come out to look at the house, then they'll be comparing your form to what you're looking at, right? So what they'll be looking at the house and seeing if it's realistic, and we include the cost of the works that you're claiming the SEI grants for.
Yeah, so this is purely for the guy who's going out from the local authority. Once they get this form in, they'll go out and inspect. And what they want to see is, okay, the costs on this seem reasonable considering the state of the house currently and what they're intending on doing to it. So they they add up, they tie up with each other. So you don't have to exclude. It's not that you'll be claiming this total could come to 400,000 or 500,000 or whatever it is, and they're not. That won't impact. Provided it's over the 70,000, that won't impact the grant amount you get. So it's just to say that, look, there's 500,000 euro work that we're planning on doing here, and when he goes out and inspects, it matches what they see when they go out there.
Yeah. So one thing I'd say there is we've said that windows and doors and heat pumps and all that would live in the other forms. There are cases where, as you can see here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. I don't know how to. You can. So say for windows and doors there, you can get a maximum of 21,000. Now, where you would, there is a small number of cases where you might not take the window and door grant in the SEI, and you might be better off claiming it from here. Now, where that would happen is if you were struggling to get your invoices to the 70k, you might claim the windows and doors through this. You avail of 21 if you go through the SEI when you're claiming 5, 6. So I'd have to say it's I don't think we've even seen it.
Yeah, it's very rare, but it is.
Yeah, there'd be nobody really with a vacant derelict house spending over only 70,000.
Yeah.
I suppose it's the long and short.
Yeah.
Very, very rare anyway. So we'll skip on. So we're coming now to the difference between the Better Energy Homes and the CEG or the one-stop shop grants. Now, I'm actually going to start splitting these out because some people maybe we're explaining it badly, but they're viewing it maybe as the same thing. These to us are distinctly different grant mechanisms, but where we'll start here is we'll compare them both to the Better Energy Homes. So if you're to go for the Better Energy Homes grant, by the way, this is all detached houses now. If you have semi-detached or mid-terrace or whatever it is, there'll be different figures, but you're not entitled here to this heating system upgrade. You get that, obviously, that's attached to the heat pump. The launch bonus for the heat pump is €2,000. You can't get that through the BEH. The floor insulation is 3,500. You can't get that through the BEH. I won't go. So windows, doors, the doors are €800 each. Mechanical ventilation, air tightness, home energy assessment, and project management, €2,000. So all of those grants are available through a one-stop shop, but they're also available through a CEG. Okay, that used to be known as a BEC for any of you who might have heard that terminology, but sorry for confusing the rest of you who haven't. But all of those grants are available. So the difference, as Stephen said, maybe there, the one-stop shop, you're probably familiar with it. Somebody like Ashgrove would be carrying out all the works for you. We'd come in, do the assessment, we'd give you a price, we'd agree a contract, we'd give you a start date, we'd give you a finish date, we'd come in and we'd look after everything. In the case of the CEG, I suppose it's a different thing. If you already have a building contractor on site, say in my case I had, that's probably a bad example now because Ashgrove is a one-stop shop and I'm in the middle of it. But if there's a builder there, there isn't going to, the one-stop shop isn't going to come in and sit on top of that builder, add overhead, add project management. You're obviously going to have a miscellaneous figure in there in case there's slippage, and that project is going on for 12 or 13 or 14 months, and it just starts getting expensive. So what we would do in the case of a CEG is give a set of instructions to that homeowner, tell them the U values that are to be hit, the various criteria, and when you come back to us in, I'm going to say 12 months, provided you have all of the things, I'll show you the little kind of, we call it a recipe there. Once you have all of those things done, we'll go off and we'll get you your 30,000. The vacant and derelict sits over there then, the homeowner deals with that themselves. They might just ask us for advice as we go. So the difference between the Better Energy Homes and the CEG or the one-stop shop is 17,950. So like in a case like this in the vacant and derelict, you're definitely better off in a CEG or a one-stop shop. I think in 99% of cases, there has to be a CEG. I'd expect we'd be getting questions on that. The contractual arrangement is always a hot topic, but I'm happy to answer them. And you know, we're doing a lot of them, and we're happy to tell you the pros and cons of each, and we'll give you our honest opinion. So we do have, you probably have all seen it at this point, we do have, they're about to change it, by the way, this in the BER, if you get this 7-step improvement, if you're in a rent cap zone, like if you can jump that 7 steps, you're breaking that rent cap. They're about to change this. I don't have any more information than that, but we had a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago where that's being discussed. So the application form for this looks, as I said, it's very prescribed. So this is a fictitious one now, but I'm just ticking heat pump, I'm ticking the various bits and pieces. And I would just make sure that when at the end of my my process with the vacant and derelict, that whatever is written on that list on the left does not appear on the right. Right? Anything to add to that, Johnny?
No, I think that's it. Yeah, I suppose the SEI grants are prescriptive and limited. You have a lot more flexibility in the vacant and derelict grant, so use that for your whatever it is, skirtings, your building works, your finishes, all that sort of stuff, and keep the energy upgrades for the SEI grants will be our recommendation in 99% of cases. Yeah,
in my case, between demolition and site clearance and so on, the substructure and the superstructure, I had my 70,000 hit, and so therefore it was very easy for me. There was no big decisions needed or no intelligence needed. It was just fill it out without worrying. I'm going to keep going. So the application process, again, similarly, we're going to run through this. If there are any specific questions, we jump back to it, right? Yeah. But we'll keep going a little bit. The checklists. This is the form at the end. You fill it out, and you're essentially saying at this stage now you're not lying and you're not, you're handing, as somebody has said here in the questions, the solicitors now get involved in order to put the 70k onto the deeds of your house, so that if you sell it, that anyway, all of that good stuff. And so on. So is there anything else inside that, John? No.
Yeah, no, just that there is a charge put on the property. It's second after the mortgage. So after the mortgage, if anything does happen, defaults, the mortgage gets paid first, and the vacant and derelict then gets paid after that. So it shouldn't affect your mortgage application basically, because they get the priority.
Okay, so I'm going to go into more on the CEG in 2 seconds, guys. I can see a question there. How long does it take to get approval? Being honest, it takes it takes us 6 weeks, but we will tell you straight away that the project will go ahead or not. We'll know if it's hitting the 100 kilowatt hours, the B2, or maybe the HLI. If you're going the heat pump route, we will tell you go ahead, because whether your house, we bundle those in 10s or 20s or 30s and put them in. That's the way the CEG grant works. But once your house is hitting the criteria, we will tell you that house is good to go.
We have rolling contracts that come up through the CEG, so we'll always have a slot for it to go in depending on when it finishes. So we're happy to say to you to go ahead to start work.
Yeah, in some cases there, Paddy, like as I said, once you're hitting the criteria, there's no chance of it not getting approved. All that might not get approved there is, for example, say if we had a parish hall or something like that, we're supposed to have some sort of a community aspect to it, albeit that there's a new variant of the CEG where that might not be, that might be slightly different going forward. But we would put forward your house or whoever's house with the other 19 houses in a parish hall. They might shoot the parish hall. What they're looking for is carbon reductions per euro. Right, and once we're at a certain level or better, the project gets go ahead. Now they might decide, okay, we don't like what you're changing the front, the light over the front door for the parish hall. Well, that's not good enough, right? So we'll expect something stronger there, Shane, and we'd put something else in there. But the houses will go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll always have slots for houses in whatever application we're putting in.
Yeah.
So I think this is the application form for the vacant and derelict. There's more questions coming in on the CEG and the eligibility, which we'll actually be covering in the next slide.
Yeah, we're going into more detail now. In this case, we're going to, you're going claiming the money now, so we have to be more careful what we write in this form. But again, unless there's questions in it, I think we skip it, John. It's
just maybe as the step over, we've kind of been discussing in general the vacant and derelict grants. We're kind of switching over now to go into detail about the SEI grants. So just in principle, the vacant and derelict grants are there to bring houses back into circulation. They want houses available for people to live in. The SEI grants, their motives are more to bring up BER ratings of houses up to at least a B2. So just, I suppose, understanding the motives of each of the two grants and why they're different. You're still taking money out of the public funds. Vacant and derelict has a very different goal to the SEI grants, not very different, but slightly different. The SEI want to see energy upgrades happening. Vacant and derelict wants to see houses back in circulation.
Okay, so we're going to look at now the difference between the one-stop shop and the CEG. You're probably all relatively familiar with the one-stop shop, but we'll go through the criteria. So it can't be above a B3 to start. No, that'd be that's a fact. Simply, you must get to a B2 when you're finished, right? You must achieve the 100 kilowatt hour jump. So there's nobody going to give you 36,000 to go from a D1 to a C3 or a C2 to a C1. They need a big jump, to get, if you're getting 30 or 27,000 or 32,000. So, and we measure that in 100 kilowatt hours. You guys will know what that looks like. Your homeowner won't have any understanding or appreciation for 100 kilowatt hours per square meter per annum. But so that's the next one. If you're going for a heat pump, obviously you have the HLI consideration. And that was recently changed from 2 watts to 2.3. That was after some pilots that they ran, and they found that the 0.3 didn't have any meaningful negative effect on the running costs. So
just to start, so the CEG and the one-stop shop have the same eligibility criteria. So there is a pre-BER needed when you're going for a CEG. So again, SEI need to know where their line in the sand is. What is the house at currently? They don't want to be given the bonus grants, as we call them, for people who already have a B1 house. Again, not relevant for vacant and derelict. Obviously, it won't be a B1 house, but if anybody did have a B1 house, they don't want to be given that bonus grant to them in order to bring them up to an A2. They want people who are lower down the BER scale, get them up to a B2, and that's where they're happy to use, I suppose, taxpayers' money that's good use of the taxpayers' money is to get those houses back up to at least a B2.
Yeah, actually, just on that, there's a question there on the CEG. I'll answer it seeing as we're there. The one-stop shop, obviously, this is a 23 or 24 one-stop shops in the country right now. Obviously, that's a whole rigmarole to get to become registered and approved there. But the question is here, for the CEG, does the contractor have to be SEI registered? Well, we are, I suppose, an approved CEG coordinator, right? So we have that relationship with SEAI. What that allows us to do is keep an eye on, say, we have your local builder, say it's your project, and we're talking to you, we're talking to the builder, and the builder wants to do the floor insulation. There's no sign off required for that. He gets windows from Munster Joinery. That's perfect. He deals away with them. But when he comes back to us, that he has, if the heat pump and stuff like that needs to be obviously signed off by an SEI guy, his own contractor should be SEI registered. Or in some cases, if we're happy with the guys, we take them under our umbrella there and maybe look after that. But we need to know those guys very well. And so dry lining and stuff like that.
Yeah, there is SEI registration required for contractors through the one-stop shop. Obviously, that all falls on the one-stop shop. We're happy to talk to people on a kind of an individual basis to navigate that. Floor insulation, as Shane said, doesn't need to be. Windows don't need to be. The wall insulation and the attic insulation and heat pump and PV obviously does. Insulation, the main reason for them being required to be SEI contracted is mostly to do with ventilation and air quality within the building. That box is ticked. So yeah, we can work with various scenarios in that to help.
Okay, so we'll keep moving here. We just mentioned here about the SR50. The SR50 is there for, it's a pain in our ass, but it's there for everybody's protection to make sure that the radiators or the underfloor is designed so that the heat pump operates in its sweet spot. Obviously, heat pumps can run at 50 and 55 degrees, maybe higher today, but it's like driving a car at 100 miles an hour. We can do it, but you're doubling or trebling the running cost of the heat pump. And it can happen very easily, pipes too small and so on. So the SR50 there is for everyone's protection. And I don't believe as much of a pain in the ass as it is. It's probably not, there's probably more detail required there, in my opinion. So the maximum U value, so what the maximum allowable U values under the BEC or under the CEG or the one-stop shop are these. You'll be all familiar with them. But what we would say is, whilst the windows can be 1.4 or the doors can be 1.4, some of you will be very familiar with this concept. If the house can't get to the B2, or we can't get the 100 kilowatt hour jump, or we can't get the HLI below 2.3, we might need to start changing these. But they're the maximum allowable, right? We do have houses there that are ticking the 3 boxes. They're at the B2. We saw one recently in North Cork. We're at the B2. We were at the 100 kilowatt hours, and we were very comfortable on the 3 criteria, the HLI. But the guy decided actually that 75 mil on the walls was more than enough insulation for any man, and off he went. And we caught it just in time, but he simply didn't understand. His opinion was not relevant. He needed to be told stop. He was going to leave 4.5K after him. And so he'd still have been in the CEG or the one-stop shop. He'd have been foregoing that
individual specific grant.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no surprises in any of that. You know the difference between the underfloor and the non-underfloor and the floor. So it's 0.15 if you're going for underfloor heating, and it's 0.36 if you're going with radiators. So no surprises there. So so the home energy upgrade grant.
This is the loan scheme.
Apologies. We'll skip through it quickly, yeah. Johnny, because I think we have in here. I'm sure we have the what if somebody comes to us for a CEG, what would it look like for us to administer for it, or by the way, for another CEG coordinator. So we'll skip on to that. Yeah. So
that's just to make people aware that there is a low cost loan scheme. The interest rates are actually down as low as 3% in some cases now, yeah. And it's up to 75,000. So just being aware that it's out there. It can only be got when you're getting the SEI grants through a one-stop shop or a CEG. It can be gotten through BEH, but it's rare that it actually works.
And not for solar.
Yes, so for solar.
So yeah, it's unlikely that we would have this, by the way, for vacant and derelict, because in most cases you'd be borrowing so much money or spending so much money, you'd be going for a mortgage anyway, and it wouldn't make sense necessarily to go for a mortgage and this.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's double the stress, definitely. So, but the highlights are launched last year. It's, as John said, it's for the SCI grants. Low interest rates, 3% is the best we've seen. Flexible terms up to 10 years. Loans from 5 to 75,000. 75% of that money must be, we call it eligible measures, and 25% can be your jacuzzi, bath, or whatever. They don't really ask you about it anyway, but 75% must be for
the energy upgrade side of things. So for the cost of insulating the walls or the windows or whatever it is.
Within reason. And so the loans are unsecured. This is probably the big thing. Now the bank will still check if you have the capacity to repay it, but if you default, there'll probably be 1 in 100 in the country that will default on this, but the government is covering that, so it kind of takes pressure off the banks. So yeah, again, there are the 3 schemes. One-stop shop. What's going on here with my mouse? One-stop shop, the Better Energy Home Scheme, except solar, and the Community Energy Grant Scheme. And the loans at the moment are available to draw down up until the end of next year. Now they're talking about extending it. But we'll wait and see. I'm sure they will, by the way. So the CEG case study. So again, this is a picture of my old farm house before I started. Here are the grants that I am applying for. So you can see here the heat pump, the heating upgrade, heating system upgrade, the launch bonus for the heat pump, etc. We'll skip down through it, the solar, floor insulation, and then you have external wall, windows, doors, all the rest of it. And sorry, my mouse is acting wonky, guys. So you can see here it comes to 36,050, right? And that's excluding energy credits. So we'll talk about the energy credits in a second. It's a hot topic. We'll talk about it in a second. So, and here is what it would look like if you contacted us. I don't know how other people deal with it. There aren't a lot of CEG contractors in the country. We haven't gone looking to see what the rest of them are doing. We're taking our best stab at it. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's certainly not, and we're trying to improve it all the time, so it's more user-friendly. But in this case, you can see here, this is page, I'm going to say 10 out of our quote, or page 6 out of our quote. It tells you the grants we're applying for, what the total grant amount is. So in this case, 36,050. We'll tell you what our charge is. So in this case, we're charging 2,500 for setting up the project and all the rest of it. And after that, we charge per measure up to a maximum of 6 measures. Okay, so that's a grant admin fee of 4.6. Obviously, 23% of that is VAT, and so on. So what you're getting for that is the next page, right? Which you can see here. It tells you the size of the heat pump. When we put your specific heat pump into, so if you guys do pre-BER and send us the dwelling report, or you can do it, you can put the heat pump into the software, and we can see if the house complies or not when it's finished. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, so this is kind of the recipe that we give to the homeowner, or project manager, or builders, or architects. More and more common that, look, this is the specs that need to be achieved. These are for the existing part of the house, not necessarily for the extension. They assume that the extension will be built to new build regs. You're not getting a grant technically for any of the extension works. So that's the criteria that needs to be hit. Sorry, I'm having the same problem with the mouse as Shane had. For the various elements that are specific to this project, that this is what they're doing. And we're, I suppose, available to go through this. I suppose we deal with a lot of homeowners individually as well, and we're happy to talk to their builder or their architect, go through it with them. A lot of this obviously means nothing to homeowners. A lot of it means nothing to builders as well. But I suppose the thermal conductivities there is all fairly standard stuff. There's no specialist equipment. All that is to cover us that somebody's not bringing in an insulation from China or something that has a very poor thermal conductivity, and now all of a sudden they put in 150 mil, but it doesn't tick the box. So yeah, so that's the criteria that kind of needs to be hit.
So the long and short of it is, so the customer in this case would contact us or any other CEG coordinator. Can you give me the recipe? So we do it like this. Once they follow the rules here now, in most cases they'll come back and say, Shane, would you do the heat pump for us and maybe do the solar for us? We'll get the windows from Munster Joinery. I'll do the floor insulation myself, and my brother-in-law does dry lining and whatever. So, but we might have no involvement in that project. So if that project was in Donegal, we actually do quite a lot in Donegal, despite the fact our office is in North Cork. But like, we are only there to keep them in the straight and narrow, and we're there for the QA after. Is everything as it should be? We sign off on the paperwork. We have all of the photos for the various things we need. They upload that to our portal, which is all through an app that they're given at the start. And once all of that is done, they're paying us 4 or 6, but they're able to do the work themselves. What this allows them to do is, with our recipe, they can go out to 1 or 21 builders. So this is and more importantly, they're local builders. They can get the equipment from their local suppliers. And so we think this is a great scheme for the project there, like mine, where I'm building on 100 square meter onto the back, 100 square meters. The local builder is really the best guy to do that. I mean, there's no point in going to to Ashgrove to build an extension in Donegal. We're not builders. That's just the long and the short of it. SCI have told us we're not supposed to use this sort of language. By the way, we're after getting a rap in the knuckles or a few times over it. But there are some cases where the one-stop shop does work for these projects. There are very few. So the reason we're using kind of strong language here is we think that for people to understand that the one-stop shop is very useful, it's important that they know where it's not useful. Because if we're judging, as they say, a fish by his ability to climb a tree, well, all fish are stupid, or useless. And we see that with the one-stop shop. So I think the SCI probably need to do a better job in saying the one-stop shop is great here, the CEG is good here, the BEH is good over here, the Better Energy Warmer Homes over here. We view that as our job. When somebody rings us, we talk to them and say, okay, this sounds very much like a one-stop shop or a CEG, but they are vastly different tools. Anyway, we'll keep going.
Just to answer a question while we're on it, air tightness is not mandatory for a CEG. No, you don't have to get an air tightness test. There is a health warning with air tightness tests that if it does go below the 5 meters cube per hour per meter squared, you're into the realm of mechanical ventilation. So the air tightness test is not mandatory.
Okay, we're coming to the end here, guys, and we'll launch into the Q&A. Then we'll try and get through them. So the CEG, simplistically, who is it for? It's for anybody. It's a homeowner or a landlord who wants to upgrade multiple parts of a dwelling. The house has to get to a B2 when it's finished. Has to be built before 2011. And for us, the CEG is any project where there's a contractor on site. Why would we be in there beside him or on top of him or below him or whatever it is? And all of a sudden there's a 3-way contract between us, the contractor and the homeowner. So the one-stop shop for this makes no sense for us. And certainly where the project will take up to 12 months. I know Joe Public would love Ashgrove to be a bank. We're not a bank, unfortunately. So these projects we would expect are funded through the mortgage, and we get the grants retrospectively. In this case, it was whatever it was, 36,000, and the extra and the 100 comes from the 70 comes from the vacant and derelict. Now they're trying to engineer a way where it's like TAMS or something like that, which you'll have seen for the farmers, where when that grant comes back into the homeowner's bank account, that it goes straight to the bank. So the bank are protected here that they funded the project, but the grant comes back and the customer disappears to Barbados with their 70k, so that they essentially have a lien over that 70k. So that's the CEG. We believe that, put it in very simple terms, that the CEG is the cheapest and best way of doing that project. There'll be a one-stop shop where it's different, but it's a different tool. Here's one of them. I'm actually going to skip the first one, just watching the time. This is the project. I'll do it very quickly. A house built in 2003. These people contacted us, I'm going to say 3 years ago now. And it was a C2 when it started. The people were looking for solar panels, but we knew because it was a C2, we could very easily get it to the B2. We suggested we pump the cavity wall, we do the attic, we do a heat pump, and we do solar. And after the grants, that was 8,000, right? Now, the project cost was 25,000. The grants were 17. If they had gone the BEH route, they'd have gotten grants of 11. So the difference there is 5,600. So very hard to like. You could do it through a CEG as well, but then the customer has to pay the 25,000 at the start and wait for the grants after. There'd be no reason why you would do that. So we think that's a great one-stop shop project. Similarly, the next one is even more so because similar houses in that same estate later came with attic and cavity wall, air-to-water heat pump, solar PV, windows for detached houses is €3,000 grant.
4,000 for detached, sorry.
What?
4,000 for detached, for semi-detached.
Sorry, apologies, sorry. 3,000 for semi-detached,
Yeah.
4,000 for detached, sorry if I said something else. And 2 doors, then €800 each. EV charger. Now, this cost, by the way, wouldn't be 15,000 today. It's probably 18,000 today or something like that. But either way, it's 37,000 for the entire project minus the 22, which we have to fund, and we retrospectively get the grants from SEAI. And so over and above the BEH grants, that's 11,400. 10,850. So all day long, and I'll argue with anybody who says a one-stop shop is rubbish. These are brilliant projects, right? But they're in and out. We're in and out of these maybe 2 or 3 months. And by the way, any other one-stop shop should be similar prices. I don't know. But where we're hearing about the one-stop shops being expensive is typically the CEG project we looked at. And unfortunately, it's getting a lot of bad press in that situation. So we're defending the one-stop shop despite what SEI think we're saying here, that we're using, what was the word? Anyway, doesn't matter, I can't remember the word. They said disparaging language about the one-stop shop. We're not, but it's for these type projects.
Yeah, this is excellent value for the homeowner there. The 15 or even 18,000 to get that amount of work done is excellent. Ashgrove as a company, we're happy to fund that €22,000 of grants. We don't get that till the end, the same way, kind of similar enough through the CEG, but we can have that work done, as Shane said, in kind of 2 or 3 weeks. We can then put in the application form to SEI and get the grants back in 4 to 6 weeks. With a CEG, with a vacant and derelict house, where if we were to do that through a one-stop shop, we're starting spending money, we'd say January 2025.
With the floor insulation.
And then we're works out, and the post-works BER isn't done until March 2026. And then we apply for the grant. So now we're funding for a long period of time. So again, if through the vacant and derelict, the homeowners are getting mortgages, it makes more sense for them to fund that through the mortgage than for Ashgrove to fund that, and or a one-stop shop to fund that and charge them for funding it. Because as Shane said, none of the one-stop shops are banks, and whatever way they're funding it, the homeowner will be charged for it. They have to be. It's only reasonable for them to charge for it.
2 points onto this. Number one, the HUNS, the Home Energy Upgrade Loan Scheme, is perfect for this now, because the homeowner will go off and they'll get a loan of the 15,000 in this case. As I say now, that might be 18,000 today. But either way, if they don't want to dip into their savings, or if they don't have savings, 15,000 is very manageable at 3%. I mean, that's practically free money. And the second thing is, I want to say, Ashgrove are not here to sell one-stop shops. We're trying to make the point that a one-stop shop is an excellent thing, but it's different from a CEG, and the CEG is more suited to the vacant and derelict, which is what we're here to talk about. So we're not selling our wares. We're trying to compare and understand why the one-stop shop maybe isn't directly suitable for the vacant and derelict. Anyway, just in case you thought we were gone into full sales mode there. So those houses are all, another important point, they're all gone past the B3, which means we're into green mortgage territory. And again, my last point there is that the one-stop shop is the cheapest and best way of doing that, and I'll argue it all day long. Okay, Johnny, will you keep an eye on questions there and see how we'll start?
Yeah.
Stephen, you might jump in as well while I'm finishing this point, I suppose, just to what do I want to say, just to summarize. Where would we use a one-stop shop? If there's nobody else on site, There's no potential conflicts with contracts or contractors. So you can imagine if Ashgrove did the window, but the builder did the walls, and if there's leaks, we're all looking at each other. If it's less than 2 months long or 3 months long or 4 months long or something of that kind of go, we would happily look at it as a one-stop shop, and there's no other works other than grant works happening. So often we get asked there, will you do the attic insulation, pump the cavity wall, put in the heat pump, do the back and the front door, but I also want to rip up the floor, change the kitchen and do the new bathroom. Well, look, we're not going to bathrooms and we're not going tiling. So just to give you a feel for it. And then the CEG, if there's a builder on site, we would say a CEG is the correct route. An extension being built, or as I said, they're tearing up floors or all that sort of stuff, over 2 months, and there's works other than grant eligible works. So I'm going to skip this. This is our app. It's freely available to download. It's if you click on any of again, I'm not really in sales mode. This is it might sound like it, but if you don't download that, you'll see it's non-salesy. You scroll down through the various things, click into one-stop shop or CEG or vacant and derelict, and it essentially will show you a little video like this that we have on our YouTube channel. It'll give you a 10-minute intro into the vacant and derelict, or the difference between the one-stop shop or the CEG or anything else. And I suppose as importantly for you guys, if you type in your customer's name there, Shane Murphy at whatever it is, and hit send, he will have that app in 10 seconds. And you know, there's no sales in it. It's no different from today. It's very black and white information. So for you guys, next vacant and derelict webinar for professions, the 26th of May. This Friday we have a heat pump common mistakes. Now that's a non-technical version that's suitable for you or maybe the homeowner. We have the vacant and derelict webinar for homeowners every second Tuesday of every month. We do one-stop shop and CEG every Tuesday at 5 and again on Thursday at lunchtime. And the other specialist webinars then traditional home and defective concrete block work the 14th of April. We can send you links of these, by the way, Stephen, if you want to circulate them, but home upgrades for professionals, that would be more CEG and one-stop shop with a little bit of vacant and derelict as opposed to what we've done today. Again, heat pump common mistakes. And we're happy to do these for anybody if you have people that you want to train or whatever it is. And that's what the homeowner webinar looks like. That's the schedule for the first 6 months of this year. So there's over 200 of them. They're all free. We hope that that we're not overly selling Ashgrove. This is facts and figures. So, Stephen, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Shane. Thanks very much, John. That was fantastic. A lot of information in there. Yeah, share us the link. We'll and obviously I presume people go to your website. They'll find links to all this kind of stuff as well. So that was great. A lot of information in there. A lot of things I didn't know that I know now. And obviously for our members, of course, that webinar will be put up on our website, so you can go back to it if you missed pieces or whatever. And just on the CPD requirement, we'll send on a list, I presume, Barbara, on to Ashgrove, and then they can send out the CPD points. So we'll take care of that for everybody who's on the call, who can be verified exactly. So we'll take care of that. So no, that was fantastic. Just on the questions then. So a lot of questions were answered by John as we went through there, and Liam, who had to go away again, was answering questions as well from our side, which is great. Thanks very much for that, Liam. One or two that I didn't, I was crossing them out as they were being answered. So forgive me if I missed anything. I suppose one that came in that didn't get addressed was from another Stephen. Are these grants only available for domestic dwellings, or can they be used for either domestic dwellings that are being repurposed to commercial or for non-domestic dwellings?
No, you can get it. So you can't repurpose a domestic. Sorry, is that right? I'll answer
domestic to a commercial. No, I think these are strictly domestic for people to live in, right?
Yeah. If it's going from domestic to commercial, it'll have to go in under a commercial CEG. Yeah. Right. So that's a different thing. So you have to go out and do an energy audit, and then for anything that's acceptable, we put it, and it's not as black and white now as what we've just looked at. Yeah. You send it through for approval, and they'll anything that's acceptable for them, they will say we'll give you money towards the insulation, the windows, the air conditioning units, maybe the freezers or the whatever it is for say a supermarket, compressors, and they'll give you 30-35% for those. right?
There are different. There are grants out there for commercial, but there are two or three. They're also through the CEG, which gets a little bit confusing. Community energy grants, so you can have domestic and commercial in them applications. I'm aware of that. So they're a different thing. And of course, there's the new BEUS scheme, which is another thing that's out there where businesses can make a very simple application themselves or get somebody to manage it for them. And of course, the energy auditing voucher is out there to get this energy audit for €2,000. So if there are grants for, but I suppose we might just stick to the domestic stuff here today because that's probably another day's work going into the commercial thing.
Yes.
And
Can I-
Noel asked, can you sorry, we're going to just say something else there?
Well, I'm just looking at the bottom here. Some of these are easy, and so I take the easy ones. If you're not getting the heat pump, is the Better Energy Home scheme a better option? Like you can get into the CEG or the one-stop shop without a heat pump once you're hitting the 100 kilowatt hours, or once you're hitting the B2. So you could be replacing a gas boiler, or you might be leaving a gas boiler, but you can still get the project management, keep in mind. You can still get the windows, which is 4,000 for detached, the doors, floor insulation, which is 3,500. So that there's a lot of additional grants through the one-stop shop or the CEG, and you don't need the heat pump. Obviously, look, historically, we're a heat pump company, so we typically try to stay away from non-renewables, just as a principle. But we do have projects. Typically, if a homeowner is coming to us, we might say no there. Whereas if one of you guys was coming to us where we have a relationship, we'd say, look, okay, we don't like a new oil boiler attached to Ashgrove's name, but we would do it for the relationship. But anyway, so
it depends on the other works that they're doing to give a definitive answer. If they were only doing heat pump, attic and cavity, if they were only doing attic and cavity and an oil boiler, upgrading an oil boiler
or solar,
and then the individual grants is the best way to go. If you're putting in windows and doors and digging up the floor, you can only get those through the one-stop shop or the CEG. So now it makes sense to try and look at that one. It depends on the project.
Correct. Talk away. So sorry, Stephen, fire ahead.
Noel asked, I suppose this is about what the definition of a house really is what he's asking about. Can you convert an old shed or even a new shed? I guess an MPRN is the key thing, is it?
Yeah. MPRN, existing MPR, or if there was an MPRN there at some stage, or it's currently existing, is the big thing. The vacant derelict is very much that the house was lived in, or that it was a commercial building that's being converted. Cow sheds, you're clutching at straws there a little bit, pushing the line a bit, I think.
Now that said, the line seems to be pushable. Like we've seen people who have applied for something that was nothing other than an outhouse, and I'm not saying that they botched it. They were quite clear with their application. Yeah. This is what it was. We are going using it for residential, whether it's for workers or who knows what. But yeah, so we've seen it going through without people lying, if you know what I mean. But
the local authorities are quite engaging on it, and I suppose you can be fairly upfront with them and ask them that, and they're quite good. And as Shane said, this isn't like insurance where they're trying to find a way of not paying you out the money. They're quite keen to get these out. What they don't want is for them to go to the wrong hands, or not to the wrong hands, but to non-worthy causes, if you like.
Okay. Another one there. How are the completed works verified? Do you carry out a post-works inspection? So if for the vacant and derelict, we'll answer there first of all. Well, what you do is you send through all of your completed paperwork, and according to your local authority, and they once they have everything and the paperwork bit of it is finished, they'll come out then and they'll inspect. And so yes is the answer to that.
For the CEG, there's certain criteria that need to be matched. We do QA inspections to make sure that it's done, and there's photos required in the interim. So yeah, they can be verified with that. Essentially, we have to provide all this evidence that it's done, be it certs or whatever it is, to the BER assessors who are doing the post-works BER, and their post-works BER has to manage or match the work that we're applying for. So if we applied for wall insulation and the post-works BER that was done is using a default U value, they'll come back and say, sure, that's not reflected in the BER, so it's not done.
Tony MacDonald, there might be next obvious one. Can you apply for CEG grants if the construction has already started? I know some projects that were initially going to go to one-stop shop, but the contractor prices were too high. Now, Tony, I'd nearly prefer to answer that offline. It depends how far in they are.
Yeah.
Was there BER and so on done at the time in a technical assessment? Well, BER, and technical assessment. Either way, I would say talk to us, Tony, or Stephen. You're probably interested in that as well, maybe. I don't know, by the way, but we'll answer you very quickly.
Technically, the grants, you shouldn't be getting grants for any works that evolve. So if you started to dig out the floors and started to knock walls or whatever, that's fine. You haven't done any upgrade works or energy upgrade works. So you're fine to get the grants in that case. The biggest thing that we always see is that there's a BER published. And that's the big point, that's the starting point that we have to work off in order to prove that we were bad and now we're good.
Yeah.
So
exactly. I suppose you need to get out and do a preliminary BR, and it has to be truly reflective of what's happening on site. So, but obviously, I say you talk to us all, and we'll figure it out for you.
Yeah. We better not.
Paddy had a question there that I actually received this morning, and it's a good one. So he's bought. Paddy did a slightly different one, but it's the same question really. Somebody who just bought a house, the walls were pumped by the previous owners, and the house is freezing. And they seem to be locked out of the external wall insulation grant based on that. Are there ways around that? So, in your experience,
they can through the one-stop shop and the CEG, you can get an additional wall measure grant now. So you're not locked out of doing external wall insulation if you're doing it through the one-stop shop or the CEG. So even though the walls have been pumped already, they introduced this at the start of the one-stop shop program, to allow people to further upgrade it, and you can still get the external wall grant. So that doesn't block you out.
I read that question slightly differently, by the way, but if you had gotten, I'm going to say, €500 10 years ago to bring your attic insulation to 200 millimeters, the specification today is 400, so you can actually apply for that exact same grant again.
For the attic insulation, there is cases where you've gotten a grant to bring it up to a lesser specification than it is currently, and so you can get that grant again. Actually,
I suppose I know if this person had taken my advice and rang the help desk and was told no, but I mean it's just, I guess there's more room for maneuver with one-stop shops and CEG operators in it. And just keep an eye on the time there, guys. I can see people are obviously needing to get back to work and stuff. I think we've covered the most of it there. If anyone has any more questions, I'm sure they can contact the guys directly. Any specific things, of course, any specific projects you'd like to bring to the guys' attention, I'm sure they'll be delighted to take your emails or whatever. Your details will be shared. And just to say thanks again, guys. That was really, really useful. And all them other webinars you're doing, obviously they'd be all valuable CPD points for our members as well. So I mean, encourage everybody to get in there. I've been working with the lads for many, many years. Probably the first heat pump I ever seen was through Ashgrove, and a long time ago, and always fantastically helpful and there for all the assistance you need. So I'll leave it there, I think. Just to say thanks very much to Liam for helping to organise this. John and Barbara for doing fantastic work. You've seen our new MailChimp and the way you could sign up for this. It all seemed to go really well. And Barbara looks very relieved there in the background that it all seems to have gone very well. So thanks very much for everything there. Just a quick reminder to make sure and join us for our AGM on the 20th. We'll be sending out a link to that. And have a great day, everybody. And thanks again.
Thank you very much for the invite. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.